Welcome to my channel. I do live in Japan and we're moving to another continent again. My videos are going to be different from other videos out there because while I do want to inspire you and I certainly want to motivate you to do this, I'm going to be brutally honest. A lot of the videos out there, they don't show the ugly and the painful growth that comes with these epiphanies when you live in another country and you make these big moves. I'm going to walk you through the entire process, but before we move along, at the end of this video, I'm going to share my background because a lot of the times they don't really share. So I'm watching these videos and I'm like, how is this person doing this? Like, did you set up a GoFundMe? Like, how are you making these moves? So at the end of this video, I'm going to share so that you can get even more helpful insight. This is chapter 1. We are moving in about a month and a half. So right now, this is like go time, baby. This is where you want to be with me as I walk you through this process because things are expensive, things are chaotic, things are messy, things are emotional. The amount of times I've cried this week, girl. So please consider liking and subscribing so that you can keep up with those chapters as well that's coming up. I'm gonna put them out weekly. Prior to making that emotional and mental decision, there should be many months of pondering, of figuring out pros and cons, creating lists, whatever it is that is your approach to making big decisions, do it well in advance. Do not tell your family and friends. That is tip number 1. Keep things to yourself until a foundation is in place. You know why. You don't know why, you're gonna find out why. There's just a lot that's gonna happen with you emotionally, and people's fears do get projected, which, you know, hinders your ability to think clearly for yourself, your ability to plan, and your ability to like really set things in motion. So if you're sharing things while you're in the dream state with other people, even if they love you, a lot of the time their fears are going to be projected onto your dreams and you're going to come to a certain emotional halt, and you can't do that because the most important step of even getting to this place that I'm at right now, which is I'm in a new country that is completely different from my home country. Before you even get to this point, you need to emotionally make that decision for yourself and for your family if you have a child like I do. Another part of the process that I want to share is that fear is normal. Fear is biologically in place to keep you at a comfortable state. We're talking stage 1 right now, where you're still pondering, you're still deciding, you're still emotionally getting yourself ready for making this decision. Fear is going to kick in a lot. You will change your mind a lot. You will flip-flop a lot. That's why I highly recommend not having other voices and other opinions into the mix when you're in the dream state. Talk to other people outside of your circle of friends and family that have gone through this experience. Go online, go on social media and search for hashtags, search for locations, and really like study, watch, and get a sense of like, oh, I could really like belong in this community. I could really see myself in this culture. I'm not saying it's completely impossible to move to another country without doing any of this research and thrive. Of course it is. My parents did it before the internet, right? So they weren't Google translating their way through life like I have been doing in Japan for 3 years. They didn't even speak the language. I didn't even speak English. So I'm just saying, set yourself up, really go through the pros and cons, really consider worst case scenarios and what you could do if they happen. And then 4, expect fear, expect flip-flopping, expect changing your mind. But if you're somebody like I am, once I make that decision in my heart, I was like, I am not backpedaling. No. I don't know if it's pride. I don't know if it's ego. This is how I get things done, is by forcing myself to not change my mind, or it's a combination of all those things. Okay, so stage 2, you've gone through the emotional part of making the decision. Now you're getting things rolling. Do your research, go online, go on government website in terms of what is legally required for you to move to another country, right? This one's pretty obvious. So I'm not gonna dive into the details. It's case by case. It really depends on the country. And then you want to budget. So we're still in stage 2, which is, I'm assuming, many months before you actually leave. You haven't actually found a place, you haven't sold your things. So what you want to do now is budget. Because moving is expensive. We're talking first, last, and security. That's just moving to another house in the same city. Now you factor in paperwork, you factor in flights, you factor in cars, you factor in all of the things, children, dependents. So moving to another country obviously has additional expenses expenses that you want to keep an eye out. I am going to do a breakdown video of all of our expenses. That's going to be in a separate video. Start to slowly clean things out. Start to slowly purge. You don't want to wait a month before you leave to get rid of things. Another big consideration is if you're moving from the United States right now, I promise you 100% is going to be smaller. So Japan, things are just smaller here in terms of like housing opportunities. So unless you have, you know, the money, girl, you're gonna be downsizing. And you want to downsize. I think that's kind of the point. You don't want to be a hoarder while you're moving. Try to see what is truly important to you and what can you let go of. You want to reassess your furniture. A lot of the furniture that is American size is not worldwide one size fits all, one country fits all size. Your appliances, get rid of them. They're not gonna fit. Your couches, your king size beds, although I was very adamant about our bed. That's like the one thing I was like, I don't care if we put this bed in the living room. A lot of us have tangible items that we are very emotionally attached to. I'm not saying get rid of it, but you're gonna have to make some sacrifices. Okay, so now we're at stage 3, and right now we want to do some housing research. Find where local people go on their websites to find apartments, to find houses, contact realtors if you're planning on buying. I don't recommend that. I can share that in a separate video. Let's say you're moving to Portugal and the incentive is there. Personally, I would feel very uncomfortable buying property before even physically being in that country. Whatever it is that you're assuming about how living in a country is very different than being there as a tourist, times it by 100. And if you feel like you've narrowed it down before you even like bought plane tickets, that's okay, right? It gets you visualizing your life. Before we moved to Japan, we were looking around at houses and apartments and deciding between, do we want a house? Do we want an apartment? Do we want to live in a farming area? Do we want to live in the city? Can I see myself living in an island? Can I see myself living in a small town? Obviously, your budget is already set in place, but consider these things. Once you've narrowed that down, you and Google Maps should be best friends. You want to go on Street View. You want to zoom in as close as legally possible. And then what you want to do, which my husband is like really adamant about, and he's very good at this, is you want to scope out the neighborhood. I'm not talking about the street that you're going to be living in. I'm talking about 2 streets over. I'm talking about 4 streets over. I'm talking about anything within walking distance and then anything within a 10-minute drive. You want to scope out that entire area, because what you're not capable of doing, or maybe you are if you're flying in to visit or you move, which we didn't do because moving is expensive already. If you're like us, you're moving blindly and you're renting blindly. We moved to Japan, like we didn't know what our house was going to be, period. We live in a hotel for 10 days, which we're essentially going to be doing again with this new move. Guess what? We don't have a house. We don't have cars. I don't know what we're doing until we get there. So if you're like us, Google Maps is gonna be your best friend for trash. Look for messy neighbors. Obviously, talk to as many people as you find online that live in that neighborhood. Look up the cafes, look up restaurants, look up things that are important to you, local attractions. You know, maybe you wanna reconsider some other financial sacrifices in different places. Like maybe I'm not gonna get a nice car, maybe I'm not gonna get a car at all, but at least I live in a neighborhood that feels safe and feels like worth me moving and changing and flipping my whole life around upside down. So now we're at the end where I get to share my experience and my insight with you in terms of unexpected things where shit will hit the fan, failures along the way. I bet you're not even consider this seasoning. When you move to another country, you can't bring it with you. You can't have open seasoning. So you're gonna be throwing a lot of that kitchen stuff away. It's a silly expense, but it's one that always gets me every single time. I'm like, why am I dropping another $100 to $200 on seasoning again? So here's my list of unexpected things. Restocking kitchen essentials like utensils, seasoning, pots and pans. You don't wanna bring all of that. A lot of the times when you're shipping things on a cargo container, it's by weight. Another expense that we kind of forgot about the first time that we moved were Ubers and hotels. So you're gonna be staying in hotels most likely before you leave, right? Because you have to consider your living situation. Even if you own the house, you're going to be selling it or renting it out. So there's gonna be that window right before you fly out to the other country where you are homeless. Literally, like you can't stay at the house that you just sold, or you can't stay at the apartment that you just rented unless like the stars align perfectly for you. Your move out date is also the same day you're flying out, which is like, I don't recommend that at all. That sounds like a nightmare. So hotels are gonna really play into this. Stay near airports if you can. Just consider the fact that you also don't have a car anymore. So before you moved, you're gonna be selling your vehicle if you own one, which means Uber rides, which means hopefully your friends can take you around until you get all of these last minute things ready to go. There's gonna be a lot of it before you leave. There's no way to avoid it, no matter how good of a planner you are. So Uber rides and hotels. Another expense that was a little unexpected this time around, because when we moved here, I was 6 months pregnant. But now we have a 2-year-old. If you have children or dependents, flight accommodations for them, because you have to consider how 99.9% of their toys and everything that brings them comfort in life is gone. Is either sold, donated, or in a shipping container, which is going to take at least a month to arrive at your new destination. You're going to be spending some money on flight accommodations for them, like toys, lots of snacks, luggage, anything in between that's particular to your child. So that's another expense that is small but adds up. Another thing is you're gonna be doing some shopping. You're gonna be getting some essentials besides like groceries, obviously, but like clothes. Like we lived in the same 2 outfits for I think like almost 2 months. So before leaving and then after we arrived, because our belongings took forever to get to Japan. So by now, since you've budgeted and you've price matched things, you'll understand how some things are more expensive in other countries than they are in the United States. So sometimes if you add things up, it's actually cheaper to ship some of your belongings to a new country. Like outdoor furniture is so much cheaper. Rugs are so much cheaper in the United States than like Japan, for example. Take those things into consideration depending on your taste, depending on your financial availability, depending on the new country that you're going to, and depending on what's important to you. It's gonna make a world of difference, because there's gonna be days where you're just like an emotional wreck. You're so homesick. So when you have that safety blanket, that teddy bear that you're like, oh, it smells like home and it just brings me comfort, whatever that item is for you, if you can afford to bring it with you, I highly recommend that you do, because it does bring you some comfort. You're gonna need those moments. Guys, I'm gonna, like I said, make a whole series out of this move, so we're gonna dive a lot deeper into the details. I hope this video has been helpful so far. If you considered it helpful, please consider liking. It helps me so much. Thank you so much. Mwah. At the end, I did want to share a little bit of a background on myself so that I can give you some even more helpful insight. So I didn't come from a wealthy background. I was born in Brazil. I come from a very loving and supportive family, which makes a huge difference. A lot of the big scary decisions and the big moves and the bold moves that I've made throughout my life, I was only confident enough to make it because I had the love and support of my family and my parents. They're moving and it's so scary, and if all else fails and you're kicked out and you're homeless, it brings me comfort to know that there's somebody out there that loves you and can take you in and just embrace you. If you don't have that with other people or your family member, be that person for yourself. I've also had to do that. My dad moved to the United States with absolutely no money, didn't speak English, didn't have anyone there that he knew. This was before the internet days. So after my dad settled in, my mom and I moved to the United States. We also didn't speak English. We also had nothing on us. We had one luggage. My mom told me I was 10 years old. So I have the perspective of moving to a new country and a new culture as a child. And then I also have the perspective of moving as a 20-year-old and as a 30-something-year-old with a child now. So I feel pretty experienced about all of this. Put myself through school. I got my bachelor's degree. I worked really hard. I jacked up some loans. I paid off some loans. And then I moved around from different cities to different states, and I moved to New York. I had nothing lined up. I had no job. I had no internship, nothing. I was just like, I need to do this for my career. I need to set myself up. I need to live in New York. I wanted to. I did have a best friend that lived in Brooklyn at the time, but I ended up not being able to afford to live near her. But you know, I had someone that gave me confidence, knowing like if I'm homeless, like I can knock on her door. Then from there, I moved back to Boston. I put myself through my master's program, and then I moved to California. I got married, and I finally worked my way up to an executive position. I was a creative director for many years. Prior to getting married, there was a period in my life where I moved back in with my parents so that I could save up. So grateful for them that I was even able to do that. I think I stayed for like 1.5 years, and girl, I'm telling you, I did absolutely nothing. I didn't shop. I didn't go out to eat. The only time I went out was like when I went on dates. Sorry. So living at my parents' house and saving up, I think I saved like 10 or 15 grand. So not like a huge amount, but certainly for somebody at the age and stage that I was at, I'm like, I'm rich. But you know, looking back on it, I think it just gave me financial confidence to be able to venture back out into my own. While I had love and support and emotional support, I couldn't like call people up or my family and ask them for money. Even though it's difficult to not have that lifeline when things got really rough, and they did. Like I got caught stealing ramen noodles because I couldn't afford to eat at some point in my life. Thankfully, the person that worked at, it was at CVS. Thankfully, I was crying so hard that they're like, I'm not gonna put this on your record, but like, don't ever come back here. And I was like, okay, can I keep the ramen? And they're like, no. Sharing this to hopefully give you some insight as to how people's journeys can go like this, and how some people have privileges set in place. My privilege is that I have a really loving, like I said, and I can't say it enough, I have really loving and supportive family, and their love and emotional support really is what gives me the confidence to just be as wild as and dream as wild as I have been. Once I had that savings lined up, it just gave me even more confidence to venture out and be like, okay, if things get really bad, like I don't have to steal ramen anymore. You know, I have this like this money saved up. And what I ended up actually doing for many years was just recycling that money. I can do a whole separate video because I've always been really, really good at managing my money. I've always been good, no matter how little I had. I was making like 20 grand, 25 grand a year at one point for many years. I would say like 2 or 3 years. And nobody knew. Like, they don't need to know, right? But I was just really good at managing money and recycling my savings. If anytime I ventured out of the financial plan, I would just put it back. I can do a whole separate finance video on that. If you guys are interested, comment below and I'm happy to put that together. Just to wrap this up, so from there, I moved to California. I met my husband, then I moved to California. I got my dream job. I worked really hard. I became a creative director. I worked even harder. And then I made my way up to the executive position that is really, really difficult for somebody with my background to achieve. So I'm very, very proud of those moments. I was making 6-figure, which like no one in the history of my entire family has ever made, ever. And it makes me emotional to just think that because of that, I was able to, and I still am able to financially help my family, my parents, my brothers. A full circle moment for sure. So after that, I did feel a little bit like, okay, financially I'm good, you know, like I'm saving a lot of money, I'm living well, I'm enjoying life, I'm doing these activities, I'm traveling, I have this man that I love, like, but you know, I just felt very complacent. I felt very comfortable. I'm a type of person that weirdly enough is like terrified of comfort. It just makes me feel like I'm not living life to my potential, and I'm not living to the ability that I should be based on my family sacrifices in order for me to have the opportunities to live life fully. And I don't mean live life fully by like traveling to Tulum and buying a Louis bag. I mean live life fully as in like, why are you still on the couch like every single day? What are you doing to like push yourself to grow? What are you doing to like find yourself? And what are you doing to like find new passions? Like, are you living this life of abundance, like memories and experiences and happiness and growth and pain, but like growth from that pain? So I don't particularly like comfort. I don't like feeling complacent. And so much so that it's driven me to move several times. And my husband thinks I'm the crazy one, but deep down, he's just as crazy. I have the ideas and I kind of like, no, we can't back out. And he'll be like, okay, yeah. This is wild, but like, let's do it. Like moving to Japan, 6 months pregnant, the day that borders closed, the start of the pandemic, he was just like, we should not be doing this. And I was like, I'm not backing out. All of our things are gone. Everything's got shipped out. We sold everything. We don't have a house. We don't have cars. We have nowhere to stay. Where am I going to have this baby? We're getting on that airplane. So we complement each other in a lot of ways. I do have him. And that's my privilege within this sort of moving to a new country story. So I do want to be transparent about that. If you are moving with a partner, it's tough. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be trying, but it's also like, wow, I can't believe we're doing this. I can't believe we always look at each other, we're like, can you believe we're here? I'm always like, this is why, like, Our daughter was born in Japan. Like, we've never been to Japan. Full disclosure, we had never been to Japan before moving to Japan. So we have this life. I am so like emotional about leaving it. But I want to close with saying that even though there's a lot of fear that comes with a big change like this, because now it's not just me and him anymore, the new added layer to our adventure is that we have a baby girl that is fully dependent on us. Even though the fear is there, there's also so much excitement. Truly feel so alive when we're going through big moments, these big chapter changes and turning. Like, I could just feel myself grabbing my book of life page and just like, I finished that chapter, done. And like, it feels so exciting because I'm like, I can't wait to read the next one. Like, I need to get to it. I'm hungry for it. So even though I'm like so afraid and I cry at least once a day because I don't know anything ever. Even if I stayed in the same exact bubble for the rest of my life, I still don't know how things are gonna play out. The beautiful thing about surviving these painful growth and character developments that comes with making big moves like this is that your fear threshold just kind of gets expanded. Things that you were afraid of a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago is like laughable now. I'm like I'm not afraid that I'm gonna fail or not figure it out. Does that make sense? Whereas before I was like, it was almost paralyzing. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Now I'm like, I can definitely do it. And you're able to grow into, it's like leveling up. So I'm excited, I'm fearful, but I'm confident that because I've done this before and I've survived these moves and these big changes and these challenges that life brings, I know I can just be like, okay, well, this isn't working out anymore, and yeah, we're gonna move again, or yes, we're leaving, or yes, I'm walking out from the situation and pursuing something that brings me more peace. So I feel good. And I want that for you because I've talked to so many people and friends even, they're like, that sounds like a nightmare. That sounds like I'm anxious just thinking about it. I want you to feel like, yeah, that sounds like a lot, but also like, how dope. I'm just saying there is a huge payout. The bigger the risk, the larger the payout. My life is a living proof of that. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'm so happy to answer. I'm so happy to connect with people. And then definitely subscribe because like I said, this is chapter 1 of an entire moving to another country series. I'm gonna be sharing home tours, Skypes of home tours and apartment tours. I'm gonna be sharing a lot. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, you are a gem. I love you. Do a name drop. Let me know where you are in the world. I want to know where you're trying to move to and why. I would love to hear from you. Okay, thank you again, and I'll see you next week. Bye.